Welcome everyone to the Paranormal Pride. And tonight I want to say farewell to a friend that passed away overnight. Susan Long passed away from her battle with cancers. And when I say cancers, there were multiple. She fought a valiant fight, and we're all going to miss her. And I'm sending all my love to John Long and all of the kids. And David, to you as well, because I know how much of this is going to affect you and Addie. So everybody, please say a prayer for Susan Long and that she is happily in heaven and out of pain. And on to happier subjects now. I didn't see this until just before the show, so it's still hitting me a little hard. I mean, like 5 minutes ago, I guess it was. But tonight I have an extra special guest for all of you guys, and it's Denise being selfish. Just so you guys know that. I have asked a lady to come on. She lives down in Pensacola. She is part of Second Sight Paranormal TV. And I think it's going to be fun for us to get a tour of what she considers the best parts of Pensacola and the surrounding area. And I hope to learn a lot from her. And of course, and meet her when we get down there. So I'd like to welcome Ericka to the show. She is the psychic diva, right? Did I get that right?
Yes, I do go by Psychic Diva, but I always tell people Psychic Diva is just more about the personality of liking the mansions and the old historic mirrors and the glamour, the bling, the chandeliers. But as far as diva and personality, I wouldn't say that I was a diva. I would say that I'm very humble and a team player. But I'm also sassy now. Don't get me wrong. I'm not that girl. But yeah, I mean, diva is more about the glam. I love a lot of little sparkly things. But yeah, I try to stay humble, most definitely.
Well, before we started the show, I forgot to ask you how to say your last name. So that's why I introduced you that way. So how do you say your last name?
So the running joke in the family is my last name is actually Moroccan. My husband is from Morocco. And most people, when they look at me, especially when my hair was longer, they would always assume, which kind of played to my benefit, that I was from New Orleans, from NOLA. And so my last name is pronounced Boussarhane in his native tongue, but in the South, where I had to learn to spell this long name, I pronounce it Boussarhane. So it's kind of phonetically how I learned to spell it, because it took me a little while to get that down. But I just thought about Hain and then Haney, so it just kind of rocks.
Well, you know what? I'm so happy to have Pridemore, to tell you the truth. But it fits. The diva fits with your Southern heritage. I assume you're Southern. You sound Southern, but are
yes.
You?
Okay. I was actually born in Pensacola in 1973. I'm that young. I'm that young. And I've lived here all my life. So I am a native Floridian. And yes, I think that when you shake the state, that's saying that when you shake the whole state, everybody usually trickles down, the good and the bad and the ugly, to Florida. And that Florida woman and that Florida man, unfortunately, is so true.
Oh, well, I've heard some of those stories. Actually, we have a show on the network that sometimes pulls out the Florida man stories. And we all get a good laugh. We have some good ones up here in Kansas and Missouri as well. So don't anybody feel left out, because you know what? The Minnesota man is fun too.
Yes.
You never want to know what they're doing. And, I grew up on the Bay, not that Bay, but the, Chesapeake Bay. And I have a feeling that a lot of living down there is going to be very similar to growing up on the water there.
Yes, most definitely. The beauty of living in the Panhandle or in the Emerald Coast is that you do have water surrounding you. The bad thing about it is, of course, our hurricanes. But I think you will feel very at home in this area in this peninsula surrounded by water. So, yeah, we welcome you to the area. You're going to love it.
I know I'm going to love it. I mean, it's one of those things that when I get to the beach, I just feel at home. You know, it is what it is. You know, it's like all this stuff is just lifted off of me, and I'm ready to go. I'm not as tired as I am here, and it's probably because I'm outside more. So, but I was interested in having you on for a lot of reasons. One, I saw that you guys do a lot of events. When I looked at your website back when I sent you the invite back in December, I had saw that you guys had a whole bunch of events. How often do you guys do events?
Well, I always tell people that I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I work my businesses from home, and so I get really bored often. And so my boredom is always trying to find something creative to do. So at this current time, we do Seville Quarter, which is a paranormal investigation. We also do the Victorian Inn, which is a bed and breakfast. We do Fort Morgan. So it's pretty much any historic location. We've done the Imogene Theater. We've done the T.W. Finch House. Anything that's pretty much haunted in Pensacola. I've been able to establish connections with people over the years because I started the Paracon here back in 2009. And so over the years, people have learned to just trust, that I will, take care of their property. So we're able to get exclusive access to a lot of locations that other people unfortunately aren't able to. And so when we do that, we do offer ghost tours and investigations to the public. And they come out and they partake in this thing that they see on television. And then they realize that ghost hunting is not like what they see on television. It is very different. It takes a lot of time, and there's no guarantee, demon possession or, even activity. It is pretty.
Are you breaking the news to all of us now? There's demon possession doesn't happen every week.
It does not. We have had a case. We'll talk about that tonight about, a really terrible situation that we had with the demonic. But yeah, we do like to share our equipment and share my team is comprised of so many different people. And I always say that if you think you're an expert in the paranormal, you need to go to school again, because there's no expert in the paranormal. So what we always tell people when they're investigating with us is we're learning as well, but we're able to, because of the different walks of life, we've got a pilot on the team who's very technical. We've got a cop on the team. We've got an attorney on the team. We've got myself, Dawn. She's a real estate agent, but she's really intuitive as well. And she's a witch. So, we have all these different variety of people that can help our clients and our people that we meet in home investigations and whatnot in different ways. And I think that's very important, that our diverse team, you can find somebody that you can relate to. Even if it's not me, there's somebody on my team that you'll be comfortable with to tell your story. Because, talking about what you see, let's be honest. When you're seeing dead people, or when you're having these horrific dreams or activity in the home, you don't know, because the way we're conditioned, you don't know if it's good, you don't know if it's bad. So you're sometimes a little apprehensive to tell people you're seeing things, because, there's we live in Pensacola, there's a Lakeview Center. And if you see things, they want to take you there. So we're able to get people to trust us and tell their stories. So that's one thing I love about our team, the diverse aspects of it.
And while we've got a small break here, hello, Gary, April, and Susan. And thank you, Susan and Gary, for your prayers for, and I know you too, April, believe me, I know that you're praying too for John and Susan. So Gary is one of the ministers that we work with sometimes on independent paranormal investigations up here. Susan as well, and Susan Roberts is in the chat, and then April is my cousin. So we got a little diverse people listening too. So it's always fun. There's going to be lots of questions eventually too from everybody, so don't be surprised.
Yes.
So how did you find out that you are a psychic medium?
So, that whole thing about you're born psychic, and some people are born psychic mediums. I think that rings true. The psychic ability, the intuition is something that I believe that we all have, but it does run in the family that I was born in. My mother is a pretty much a medium also, but she doesn't really practice anymore. My aunt is mediumistic. My grandmother was mediumistic. So I was born in a family that was very clairvoyant, clairaudient, and very clairsentient.
And for our listeners, can you explain what that means?
So my weird gift is that I am all of the clairs. I am a clairvoyant. That means I see things. I see things like, looking in your environment, just looking in your room. If I were to focus on it, I would see dead people there. You mentioned the Susan lady. There was a moment behind you to your left that I could see a face. And so then I can see these things with my eyes closed too, like a movie, where most people see clairvoyance is usually in the dream state, or when they close their eyes in meditation or deep thought, or when they kind of zone out doing like a lucid dream or a daydream. So that's kind of how we see clairvoyance. I am also clairaudient, so that means I hear things. I hear people talking to me, and sometimes complete sentences, sometimes they're simple words. I am a clairsentient, which is the same thing as an empath. I also can smell. I have clararoma. Smelling can be something like walking into a room and smelling cigar smoke, or smelling the smell of death, the smell of roses, perfume. And then clairagustus is pretty much to taste. What that is for me is I don't taste a lot, but sometimes I will taste metallic taste. I'll taste dirt or blood or something like that. But I am rare. I think it's having all of them is pretty rare, but I do have all of them.
I feel you. So sometimes it's really sucky when you try to explain to somebody that you're smelling something and they don't smell it.
Yes.
And and of course, sometimes we hear stuff that's loud as anything, and you swear everybody can hear it and they can't. So it's just one of those things. For me, it's hard to explain to other people what I see. When you see a spirit, how do you know without a doubt it's a spirit?
So I think the same would be for you too. When you grow up this way, like I was telling somebody yesterday that when I looked at people, ever since I was little, I could see spirits around them. I could see their auras. I could look at the sun and see the aura around the sun. I could see energy. And I never thought I was different. I thought everybody could see that until one day I was telling somebody, how you see that? And they said, what are you talking about? I don't see what you see. So how I usually see spirits is I'll look at a person like as I look at you, and there'll be something behind you or around you that'll distract me, kind of like that. And then I'll zone in on it, and then it starts to appear as a person. But I don't usually have just dead people walking like all around, because it would scare the crap out of me. So what they do is they get my attention. And a lot of times I'll look at someone, they'll look familiar to me. Like I'll say, hey, do I know you, in my head? And then the people start talking, the visions start happening. So it's usually they get my attention in some capacity, or I will get cold chills or goosebumps or hear noises like I just heard like that. But it's usually something that they will do to get my attention when I interact with the person.
Okay. Because for me, if I'm trying to explain to somebody that I see somebody in the room and I tell them, they look just like you or me. Mm-hmm. Only thing different for me is that they don't have feet. And I don't know why they don't have feet. I guess maybe that's my signal that they're not really there.
Yeah.
For me to keep my mouth shut, unless the person wants to know, that's kind of how it is for me. But I can't explain that to people very well, because actually Gary asked me that question one time. I was on a show and he asked me how I knew the difference between a real person and a spirit. And that's when I realized I don't see their feet. But, you have to really pay attention to figure that out. So April, she asked, can you interpret dreams?
Yes. What I do with dreams is I wouldn't call myself a dream interpreter in the sense where, hey, there's a book and I'm going to say the book says this. I think that a lot of times books can be kind of a tool, but you really have to rely on your intuition. So when someone says to me, I dream of a whale, I don't go to the Google and, Google what a whale. I look at what that whale means to them at that moment. And so I encourage people to also do that with their dreams. When you have a dream of grandmother, it might be grandmother, it might be something else that she's trying to show you in the dream. So you really have to analyze that dream yourself and break it down. And sometimes dreams are nothing. They're nothing at all. They're just, you ate some bad food, you watched a scary movie, and all of a sudden somebody's trying to kill you in your dream. And it's, well, maybe not. Whoever that is that had that dream. But yeah, so that could be a dream, a situation where, hey, get up and lock your door. Someone's trying to protect you. I've had dreams like that where, not for me, it wasn't even for me. I had a dream of a friend of mine, and I was in her house, and I could see a man coming through the back door. And I hadn't been in this woman's house for over 20 years. And then I called her and I sent her a text and I said, hey, make sure you lock your door. Well, she ended up getting broken into anyway. They broke the glass, but I saw that ahead of time, and she was not home, thank God. Yeah.
I mean, April asks about dreams a lot. She has a lot of prolific dreams. And, sometimes it's true. You have to figure out what everything means for you, because, me dreaming about a whale could mean that I've gained too much weight and I need to deal with it. Let's be honest. We all know that sometimes the things that we see as visuals in our head, we use those things to describe something about someone. Like, big shock, everybody. Everybody gets a nickname so that Ron knows who I'm talking about, So we have we had 5 friends named Rick, and one of them got called Rick Springfield because he lived in Springfield, Missouri. So, if I'm dreaming of Springfield, am I dreaming of Rick, or am I dreaming of friends that live there? Am I dreaming of just going there? I don't know. I won't know until something else matches up with it. The synchronicities that we were talking about on the phone on Saturday. Sometimes these things fit together like this, and sometimes they're like, they have nothing to do with each other, just like you said.
Yeah. The breadcrumbs, as long as we're continuing to look for them, they'll continue to come. But sometimes we can make a sign that's not a sign. But I would still say, try to keep looking for a sign, even if it's nothing, because it just will keep things coming. And for April, one thing that I would recommend, if she's not doing this already, is to get a journal or a book. Label the tabs. The tabs have, what I'm saying is, label tabs A to Z. Okay. And so if you were to dream about a whale, put that dream under W. Okay. Date it. And if you were to dream that Ericka won the lottery, you put that under E. And
call
then
you
say February, when she plays the lottery, I had this dream that she won the lottery. And then you put that under E and you date it. And then so when you have that precognition, that precognitive dream, you can go back, because I think a lot of people have precognitive dreams, but they just don't remember all the stuff that they get. And if you can do it in an order where, it's alphabetical, you can go back to date and time, you'll probably see, April, that you are dreaming a lot more than you even know.
I think she'd have to sleep more, but she has 7 boys, so I don't know how she even has time to dream when she's probably doing laundry in her sleep. So she actually put on here, I dreamed recently about a woman who was crying in an elevator, saying that they could not take it anymore, and then had knowledge of what I thought was a car accident where 2 older couples died. And she said it was associated with a church I used to attend. Then I found out the other day the older man from that church had died.
Oh, wow.
So, April, she gave you the same information I gave you on the journal, but a little bit more information on the organization. So yes. You basically told her very similar to what I told her, except your organization is better than what I told her.
Yeah. And
I just said, start writing it down is all I did.
And it's hard to, because like you said, she's a mom, she's doing mom things. And when she can sleep, It is convenient. I know that at some point, similar to what you were saying, I had like papers. I'm known for writing papers. All just I would have papers under my pillow with a pen, and I would wake up and I wouldn't even get up. I'd just start writing like what I would get, because it would come to me so quickly. So even if you have to put that journal under your pillow so that it's there, do that as well, because you definitely have to write these things down. You will be surprised how many good nuggets they give us that we probably don't even know. I got the lottery numbers a couple times, and I have won lottery, to be honest. So psychics do win lottery. One time I was in Morocco and never even cashed in the ticket because it expired. But they do give us numbers. They give us signs. They give us insight into our lives if we ask.
Well, and April, if you do get that Ericka won the lottery with the numbers, make sure that you send her an email message that she gets it.
Yes, please do.
If not, send it to me. I'll send it to her. And since we'll be in the same state, we could be playing the same lottery, so it might be helpful. But so you had said something about the theater. You said the Imogene Theater. Isn't that the one that's in Milton?
Yes. It's really weird. In the South, we have things can be pronounced so different. Some people will pronounce it the Imogene, some people pronounce it the Imogene. So it's just that whole weird thing about that. But yes, we were fortunate. I have done I think 4 gallery readings there, where they had me come and do readings for an audience. And so we packed the house out. It was kind of crazy. It was just me there and all these people, and I was doing readings. So I had done that a couple times. And we had brought Ghost Brothers there during the Paracon one year, and they did an investigation. I think I brought Brian Hornois and Chip Coffey there another time. So we had used the facility many times before. But unfortunately, the Historic Society now, they do not welcome the paranormal the way that they did a long time ago. They were more, conducive to it. Come on in, investigate. The location is haunted. And so I think Milton as a city is trying to have a revenue. They're trying to have revenue, but they don't realize the paranormal is a revenue. It is a very wonderful revenue. So they've got a historical museum, but they don't have a ghost tour that's good. I mean, they have a ghost walk once a year that is their highest fundraiser there in the city. This ghost walk, that's one day, is their highest fundraiser. And I'm doing the math because we did an event there, and it was a paid. What I did was we did a haunted house. And so we had the animatronics, everything that I wanted to buy, I bought. I had it. I had, God, I'd spent a lot of money buying all these animatronics to scare people. And then once the haunted house was over, we actually had a ghost investigation to the public. So what I was trying to help them understand is that the paranormal is a good income for them. But unfortunately, they don't really get that. And so
we've heard it. We've tried to bring some stuff over here to Paola, Kansas, but Atchison, Kansas.
Leavenworth.
Oh, Leavenworth. Yeah, Cassie. Hi, Cassie. And hello, Evelyn. Getting the paranormal, one of the most haunted towns in the state of Kansas is Leavenworth, Kansas. It's been here since Leavenworth was built, the prison. And, they've got 7 prisons in Leavenworth and Lansing. It's one of them. They got an underground, you name it. They've got something strange going on there all the time. They have certain businesses that have embraced the paranormal, but the city itself has not. And so maybe I've got a mission in Milton to help bring more paranormal stuff there. After doing all the stuff in Atchison, I can give them a lot of ideas, from what worked up there and what didn't, because we did the walking tours, we did the trolley tours, we did the paranormal investigations, we did the open houses, all that stuff, and murder mystery theaters. But, it is what it is. If they're not going to say yay or nay, if they're just going to say nay without any background just to base it on, then that's their loss. But, the history shows that if you have people that are wanting to be involved, to volunteer, to spend their time to make it great, it's going to be great. It's not going to, it's not going to be half-assed because of these people. It's usually the city that screws up.
Well, it's interesting. Even with our just the haunted attraction that we did, we surpassed their haunted attraction because they had 400 people, I think, that they said came through theirs. We surpassed their haunted attraction. So the ghost tour was, the ghost hunt was a whole different entity. And so what I have found is, they will allow you to go in, but they don't treat it as you're doing them a favor. You're renting a facility. And so if you're going to rent their facility, you're going to spend about $2,500 to rent their facility. And if you're going to spend $2,500, you're going to have to make that up. And that's really the only reason why we did the haunted attraction, because I crunched numbers. I mean, I've been doing events for a long time, and we were going to shoot a movie there. And so I said, okay, well, what we'll do is we'll rent it out and we'll do this and that. But if they had any foresight to understand how important the paranormal is in that facility, they would be more welcoming. But what something that I kind of threw around and I chose not to do because the money wasn't there, they have it for sale. And I think it's 1.2 million or something like that. And I had looked at maybe buying it, but the numbers don't crunch. I mean, the population, what you're going to get there, it's just not, it's not worth the investment.
From what I can tell, right now they have it rented out by a church.
They have it rented out for a church only one day, and pretty much any other time that they can get somebody to rent it out, they do. But the price needs to drop tremendously. If they went to about 1,000, 1,500 at top, they would rent it out all the time because it would be cost effective.
Well, I tell you, I can't wait to at least see it, to see what is supposedly worth $2,500. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
And from what I can tell is it needs to be more into the Pensacola area than outside of it.
Well, they're rezoning the street too. And that was one of the other reasons why it hasn't sold yet and why I wasn't interested, because when they rezone that street or change the street, they're going to take a lot of the frontage, which is going to be an issue with having people come in. And there's really not any parking there. So it just was not a cost-effective venture for me. But yeah, it is a wonderful location. It's been there since 1909. Milton had a fire back in 1909. This guy, Steve Harvey, built this opera house, and it's been there. It's burned down 100 days to the day that it actually was built. And I honestly think the land, because I've been on the land, not just in the building, I honestly think the land is haunted, cursed, however you want to look at it. And I don't really honestly think that there is ever going to be a business that's going to work there.
We have certain things like that as well around here, so it would not surprise me in the least. So I don't know. We'll figure it out when we get down there, and we'll look at it and see what's going on.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place, though. The area is really, really nice. There's some brackish water near. It's a beautiful location. You walk from the Imogene right to this bridge area where you can overlook what looks like a lake, but it's more like bio water. And it is. The downtown historic area is just really beautiful. I walked right off that and went into a Mason. It was a fraternal place, and it's haunted. It's a couple levels. Walked down, and there was a Catholic church there. So a lot of those old historic houses called to me because they had spirits there. So the down, even if not just the down, if they won't, do the Imogene, doing a walking tour downtown, there is a lot of activity there. Lots of activity.
Well, like I said, I can't wait to check it out because I got a feeling that I can get more house for my money in Milton than I can in Pace.
Yeah, most definitely.
And like I said, I want to be on the east side of the bridge because during Hurricane Sally, I know that the one bridge had some damage to it.
Yeah.
So, and I think the one going on 90, that one just looks like it would end up underwater during a hurricane.
Yeah, it does.
Well,
It does.
it's just like I said, just looking at it and the construction that they were doing on it when we were there, just that let's try to be on this side, you know.
Yeah.
And we already heard all the things like don't move to cantonment, and we already figured that one out a couple years, about 4 years ago. We figured that one out. But like I was telling you on the phone, when we were driving through all those days that we were down there, driving through the Seville area, which I didn't know that's what it was until you told me that. And Rob may have said it too, but I don't always remember everything.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said to you on the phone, I kept seeing this guy every night when we went back. But when we were coming through during the day, I didn't see him, but I saw him at night. And I just assumed he looked like he had been hit by a car. How haunted is the Seville area?
Well, depending on the time that you were actually here, there was an employee that worked for Seville recently who actually was on his bike, and he was going home, and he had they had I believe, a night of all the different people that work in the industry, in the bartending industry. They had a big kind of gathering, and so he left that gathering and he was on his bike and he was hit by a car. In the area of Cervantes, it is very well known that there is a lot of death from people that get hit by cars. And over the years, there has been a lot of death in that area. So Seville is haunted. The Gray House is usually what I tell people, because we know about the tour, the DAR house, the church, and all these other places. But what my pet peeve is sometimes with folklore and ghost stories is that one person will see a ghost 200 years ago. Now the house is haunted and it's going to be haunted forever. But there is no active activity at this time. And that's why when ghost hunters came here a long time ago, they went to the church, they went to the Door House, they went to the Museum of Commerce, they went to all of those locations. They did not go into the Gray House because the Gray House at that time was owned by architects that also were contracted with the state. So the Gray House is one of the most haunted houses in Seville Square. It trumps anything that you ever want to see and walk and talk about in the historic tours, bar none. There is no activity. I've looked at those houses, even the replicas. There's no activity in those houses to this day. The Gray House for sure. Seville Quarter is actively haunted. Seville is actively haunted day or night. It doesn't matter when you go in there. Downtown, the little theater that used to be the jail is actively haunted day or night. And when I say day or night, we're paranormal investigators. We like to do things at night. When you go into these places, honey, it doesn't have to be pitch black. You can see spirits in the broad day. And sometimes you don't even have to be so super intuitive. That's how haunted these locations are.
So you said something that brought me back to something I talked to somebody else about last week. I'd asked, we'd been talking about why don't we see spirits from even further back? Why does it seem like we're only seeing spirits back 200-300 years? Why aren't we seeing them further back? Is there an expiration date? Is it possible that some of these locations had spirits in them and eventually they crossed over, or somebody crossed them over and nobody knows what happened to them?
Well, let's see. This isn't really downtown historic Pensacola, but this is in the city limits. There was a house that made Newsweek. It was called the T.W. Finch House. It was advertised as a haunted house. It had an actual ghost by the name of Fred that was living in the house. Well, that house is probably, I would say, top 3 haunted in Pensacola. The Lighthouse would be number 1. The Sacred Heart Hospital would be number 2. T.W. Finch, hands down. Seville would be 4. Probably the Bluffs would be somewhere in my list. But in saying that house, though, it is so haunted still to this day. And Seville is not an 1800 ghost, it's a 1990 ghost because Wesley died in the 90s. And so, what I feel is that someone like me, someone like you, when we go into these places, they come and communicate with us, but I don't think they're always there. I don't think that they're trapped. I think that there might be someone that'll walk in a house maybe 100 years ago and they were a medium or psychic and a ghost said, hey, here, I'm here. And then nothing else happens. Nothing else happens. And then someone else comes in, hey, I'm here. And it's more of like, you're here, I'm here, so let me talk to you. But I don't think that they stay all the time. So that's why I say a lot of these historic houses that I've gone into that people say, oh my God, this is on the map as being haunted. I walk around and I'm like, there's nothing going on here. They've either moved on or there wasn't a haunting in the first place. And I've encountered things like that too, where it was not a haunting. It was definitely not a haunting. It was a misunderstanding. It was a tension. It was a lot of other things. Someone killed their husband, but the husband ain't haunting the location. Yeah.
Yeah, it may just be squirrels in the attic.
Yes.
And that's, I mean, I'm glad that you said that because, it's good to know that, there's other people out there that don't believe that everything is paranormal. And then you're spending all your time proving it's paranormal when it may not be paranormal at all. It could just be nature.
Yeah, I love that you said that. I cannot tell you as a team, and I'm sure our teams across the country have had this situation. People will convince themselves that their house is haunted, that they'll become obsessive about it. And so we'll get video. And we did recently get a video from a guy. Mind you, his mom got murdered. So I took a little bit more interest in it. But when he sent me video and said he had all these things on his camera and he thought they were spirits. And when I looked at them, honey, all it was dust. It was dust orbs just flying all around. And he like when I told him that, and the bug that he caught outside hitting the camera, which was a bug, not an apparition across the street, he didn't want to listen to me. He kept recording. And I said, I have no stake in this game. I'm just trying to help you, but send it to someone else. And guess what? That team said the same thing. So yeah, I think that sometimes people are convinced and they become their own enemy or their worst enemy in trying to prove something that's not really there.
And sometimes that maybe he just wanted hope that his mom was still there.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're going to send it until they get the answer they want.
Yes.
And so that's what people need to understand. Okay, that keeps happening. You keep, and this was brought up, and somebody sent a message on this. Just curious, every once in a while, the bottom of Ericka's screen distorts, kind of like something is running past. Are you sensing anything there with you that could be messing with your electronics?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So like when you started talking about Susan, and it's one of those things, like I don't read people because like we talked about boundaries and things like that. It's as a psychic medium, it's very important that we honor people's boundaries. But I have had that happen every time I do a live. There's always something that happens or some distortion that'll happen in the background, but it's usually to get my attention. And so what I kept getting from her is that this is like kind of a trauma tragedy at the time of death. So it might be something where, this passing is around an anniversary or a birthday or something that seems like they're celebrating something, but yet there's sadness. And I just feel like she kind of knew that she was ready to go. So she feels like she has all these people around her, but there's somebody who doesn't make it. And I don't know if this is a daughter or a girl or something, but it's like this one person is going to be really, really hurt because she wasn't able to be with Susan. Okay. And so what I would just say is that there's a lot of love for you, Denise. There's a lot of love for what you do. I do feel like she came and visited you because I do know that when people are dying, they're out of body more than they're in body. So then they sometimes come to us, and I think if she has a daughter, she might have come to this daughter too in the dream state. But there's this feeling of coming to people and warning them prior to her passing that it was her time to come. So I just feel like she is definitely at peace. She's counting, giving them numbers. So they're going to see like purple. I see a lot of purple, even though I'm looking at your purple pride more. There's like, she's giving me the color purple, like all around, and she's throwing all these numbers, which are like angel numbers for us, like the 111s and the 222s and the 333s. And, you know, she's got so much energy because I don't know if I've been in a conference with her. I don't even know if I've met her, but she feels like she wants me to dance and just be happy. She feels like a little femme body too. She's like dancing and moving, and you know, her energy is larger than life, and she's really talking about remember me, because I know that sometimes in this field people pass, and there's this whole feeling of yeah, hey, you know, let's talk about her now, and then people forget, and it's very important for her. She wants a plaque. She wants some kind of acknowledgement. And she feels to me like she's going to help other people. She's talking about building equipment. She's an interesting lady. She's talking about like when someone is going to build equipment, this might be her husband that's wanting to do this, to communicate with her that she will do that. And she says that she'll tap, tap, tap. And that's probably what she's been doing to me. So talk to him and see if he's hearing tapping around the house. The flickering of lights, which she hasn't done in here yet. And I don't know if he was driving, but she was like, somebody was like, you know, pedal to the metal trying to get to her, like right before she died. And she's just telling me to tell all them people that she loves them and that she will still visit them and she's not going away. And I don't know, like I'm touching her hand at death. So this is someone who's touched her hand and her hand goes cold, but they don't want to let go of the hand. They don't want to leave her. It feels like her husband. They don't want to leave her side. And so just please relate that she says, I love you so much. And I don't know if she's going to be cremated, but she's blowing cremation at me. So maybe that's to give the permission of cremation, if that's what they're wanting to know.
Well, her husband does build equipment. He builds paranormal equipment. So basically lights, but she is his inspiration for a lot of things.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know about the purple, other than maybe she's just.
Well, you have purple on too, and there's purple, but it's not really that. I'm gonna tell him maybe do a blue instead of blue, do a purple light. So lupus is important too. So I don't know if this autoimmune disease. I know you said she had cancer, but there might be something to do with, instead of pink, do purple, if that maybe were her color. Do something different with the color purple, maybe with his equipment.
Yeah. So I'm just, you know, like I said, I'm still kind of just grateful I got to see her back in October. So right at this moment.
Yeah.
So, and Facebook user, please give StreamYard your permission to utilize your name, because all I see is Facebook user on here. I think your name may be Melinda, I'm guessing. So if you can do that, it'd be great. And hello, Joshua Dixon. It's nice to see you here. So we're getting some very good people in here. So offering some information. It's nice. So we've talked about some places in Milton, some places in Pensacola. How did you actually get started with a paranormal team?
Before I answer that, I have a question. So like I kept seeing this, which is kind of like wings. I could not tell honestly if it's wings, but it's a tattoo. It definitely is a tattoo. So maybe see if it's not on your body, see if the husband is wanting to have some type of tattoo or wings, or if it's a bird connection with him in honor of her or something that she might have. But I would relay that message to him, because I think that's important that that he knows. Okay, how did I get started in the paranormal? So I wanted to find something like me on television, and I didn't really find anything that wasn't scary other than voodoo and a lot of crazy movies that made me feel afraid of the paranormal. And so I had a lot of friends that did, ghost hunting, and they had helped me out over the years. Richard Johnson is one of them. Brian Lee Watley, different people that would come out to Paracon and help me during the time that we had, investigations with the celebrities that I would bring to town. And so I wanted to create a team of different people. So I called Richard and I called Brian. They were friends of mine. And I said, hey, let's start a team. And so we started a team and we started adding people to the team. And we started investigating just local places in our area that allegedly were haunted, And so we went in and we investigated these places and we were honest, we were real. Was it haunted? Or if it wasn't haunted, we said it wasn't. And we started just making these little cheesy B movies for fun. And then over the years, we investigate a lot of places. The team is involved and, it's a different lineup. People went their separate ways and, it's all love. But that's how we got started. It was just primarily trying to find something that was that could explain my crazy world of being haunted and to find people that I could relate to that weren't scary.
And how old were you when you started doing that?
Well, the paranormal probably when I came out of my mom, because I can honestly say even at 7, I would see things, before that I would see things. And I started the paranormal team in 2019. Yeah, so it's really kind of not really that old. I started Paracon in 2009, Circle of Life Paracon. So we've been investigating since then, but I didn't actually create my own team until 2019.
And what has been your favorite place to investigate out there?
Ooh, okay, so favorite and scary, I will say, is going to be I'll say the T.W. Finch house. The T.W. Finch house was a beautiful mansion. It was for sale at the time for like $750, and I wish I would have bought it, but it was just too much going on there. We called it the cockroach house because every time we would go in there, we would have to sweep up 40 to 50 cockroaches, and I'm talking about those big palmetto bugs. So that was scary in itself.
And those things stink.
They do. But the history of this house was it was built by a gentleman who actually kind of was well known in the area. And he wasn't a real good businessman. He sued people a lot. And the Rock Hard family ended up getting the house way later. And Rocky Hard was an artist jeweler in the area. He had his mom had the house, he inherited it. And the history, the claim of the fame of the haunting was they would hear chains upstairs. They would hear the slamming of doors. They would hear the moving of furniture. People would feel like they were being watched. They would hear random noises. And this was just growing up. So they eventually sold it to this man named Mr. Church, and he was over the Catholic organization here. He owned Catholic radio. So you think about that. If he's Catholic and, all of this, why would these spirits bother him? Well, he moved in this house. This house had to get exorcised. He told us one time, but I really felt like that house was exorcised more than once. There were people living in that house. They tried to start out as a bed and breakfast, but it didn't work. They couldn't keep anybody in there. They rented the top layer off to these people that were building our bridge that broke during the hurricane. Mm-hmm. And they were divers. They were welding divers. And so they had all kinds of experiences there. They got pulled out of bed. The mother-in-law to the guy who owned the house, she was watching the house while they were on vacation. She came in the kitchen and all the cabinets were open. And she was the only one in the house with the kids. She got held down in the bed. We heard a big table move across the floor. We saw the door open like open like that. I was with a group of people and the ceiling fan came on for no apparent reason. I mean, I saw a ball roll across the floor. There was just so much stuff going on in that house. It was haunted. I mean, it was totally haunted. But that, I think, historically is going to be my favorite place. Sacred Heart would also be favorite too, because I've been able to walk up the floors that nobody has access to. And they won't let us really do any investigations there because there's asbestos in the building and they're worried about being sued. So, it is a beautiful location to investigate, but that house actually got sold to a doctor and they're starting to remodel it. The other location would definitely be the Bluffs. That's where we had the demonic encounter. That was scary.
Well, we'll talk about the demonic encounter when we come back from break, because we've got a break coming up here in just over a minute. And so in case some people don't come back, where can everybody find you?
So you can go to secondsightparanormal.com, or you can go to psychicdiva.net, or you can go to coldcasepsychic.com.
So those are, and they're very excellent. I mean, they all go to the same website, right?
Yeah, we have different links that will connect you to different websites. So the secondsightparanormal.com will also take you to my website too.
Okay. So, and it's a very good site. I tell you guys, go check it out. You'll find out a lot of good information. But you guys are all listening to the Paranormal Pride. And please make sure you come back after the break for the rest of the show. They always say the rest of the show is the best part. So if you don't come back, you're going to miss the climax of this great show. So everybody, enjoy. And if you have any questions, put those in the chat and we will get those questions answered, because it sounds to me like Ericka loves questions. So
I do.
And I think that you guys will love to hear the answers. So we'll see you guys in a few minutes.
The views expressed here are solely the opinions of the hosts and the guests, and not necessarily those of the network, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, etc. If you have an issue with the content of the show, please contact the show host. Thank you.
In the time when the world around us was falling apart, I answered the call. I left and you called me a hero. When I returned, you didn't care. Now you treat me as an outcast? 22. That's how many of my brothers and sisters die each day. 22. Every day I struggle with my demons. Every day is a war that I feel I'm losing. Every day I wonder if I'll be number 22. I fought so you could keep your freedom. The least you could do is acknowledge my existence.
Welcome back to the Paranormal Pride. I hope you guys enjoyed Santiago Cirillo's his commercial there, and he'll be coming to the network here really soon, and I hope you guys will enjoy that as well. So welcome back, Ericka. Thank you for sitting through that little break. So you said something about demon. So can you explain that?
So yes, when you come to Pensacola, we're known for our white, sandy, ghostly beaches. They're beautiful. We're also known for other things. We're known for a lot of murder too. I mean, it is a sleepy town. It's a beautiful town, but we're also known for some pretty horrific murders too that have made local and national news. We have always heard growing up about this place called the Bluffs and the Chimney. And as I was younger, we were always told, don't go to the Bluffs, don't go to the Chimney. Now, at some time, the Bluff and the Chimney was a cruise spot. So, growing up, we just thought maybe our parents was trying to keep us away from seeing some things that we weren't ready to see. I also, in doing research, we found out that that location had numerous deaths. Okay. So it's not really so much about that. It was just the energy of that environment, because that land was actually taken from a family. The term of the land is called the Devil's Cliff. That's what it was named by the actual owner. And so when she lost her land, the family lost the land, it became divvied up, as we know, in condos and beautiful houses and picturesque views. Well, some of that land, we believe, has some energy from some time in the 70s when they weren't doing good things. They weren't doing good spiritual things. They were doing Satanism and other stuff and murder. And there's a history of that there. I mean, there's a history that we actually found. And so we went out there, we were kind of, we were kind of naive, I guess. Yeah. We had heard the stories. Don't go at night, and we were thinking, yeah, because people get robbed, they get murdered or whatever. No big deal. We didn't think about the spiritual aspects of it. So we went out there as a team, and it was in the daytime, and we actually shot twice. And every time I talk about this story, crazy things happen. So if it amps up what you're seeing, just know that that's why. We don't usually talk about this story because there are ramifications for us talking about this. But our team went out there to the railroad tracks, and we were doing a session. And as we were doing this session, we started hearing really distorted conversation and things like kill and death and devil and say, like it was a whole bunch of stuff. And so I was starting to see these shadow figures in the woods. Like you could look at the woods, and there was this ominous shadow figure that kept moving around. And I told them, I said, hey, we don't need to go in the woods. We need to get out of here. But, at the time, my team was comprised of a lot of different people, and they were more interested in maybe cheating death or, playing that game that I didn't want to play. And so we ended up going in there, and one individual decided that because the spirit was telling them to come to this certain area, that he was going to walk over there in the dark. And I was like, don't do it. There's a hole over there. He's trying to hurt you. So I had to, of course, follow to stop this person from doing it. And they end up almost falling down a bad hole that would have hurt them. Okay. And people got scratched that night. I got burned in the bathtub when I went home. Another girl's house flooded the same night. A pipe burst in her house that we can definitely document because we have video of her walking around. I mean, her whole pipe, she moved out of that house. It was so bad. She kept seeing the same thing that I kept seeing when I was in the bathtub and I got burned. There was a spirit, like a demonic spirit that I could see. And all of a sudden I could just feel the back of my back burn, almost like as it grabbed me. And everybody that went, except for one person, had something happen. Even my camera guy, his phone cord was broken and started sparking. The next day, my battery drained in my car, so I could not leave my house that morning when I was trying to leave. It was so many things that happened. But when we did the history, there was suicides there by train, and there was just one last month. There was a suicide by train, same location. There's been probably over 6 or 7 suicides. There's been homicides. One guy, we got his name in an EVP. Dean was his name. We said, what is your name? And he said, Dean. Talking about some crazy evidence there. Would not go back in the daytime, would not go back at the night. Y'all can have the bluffs, not going there.
Where are these bluffs at?
So it's actually off a scenic highway, and it's basically the chimney. It's 2 locations, but they're right next to each other pretty much. It's the bluffs and the chimney. And the story is that the sand there is kind of more reddish because it washed down. And the also story is that the Native American tribe that lived there was actually it was demolished. Like it's totally non-existent anymore. Some tribes went into other tribes, but this tribe is totally gone. And so that was one of the things too, is the reason why people believe that this land is so haunted. Not only was it taken from the Spanish lady that owned it, but the whole Native American bloodline of that tribe was wiped out and murdered and killed. So we believe that not only them have some history on that, because we got Native American drumming, chants, and EVPs that we think they were trying to help us Honestly, I know they were trying to help us, but there was a very dark, ominous spirit there that did not want to do anything but hurt us. And we all interacted with it.
Okay. And so from what I'm looking at, this is just east of the airport.
Yes.
Southeast.
Not far away. Yeah.
Well, sounds like an interesting day trip.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, you could do night if you wanted to. I would warn you not to. But I've actually got some history of how many people I can send you that's been murdered there. It is a phenomenal location in the day. It's beautiful, but those
Yeah, it
train
looks like a nice. Yeah, it looks like a nice walking path.
Yeah, those train tracks have energy, honey, that you don't even want to mess with. Yes.
Because I see that it's got a couple. Well, it has only one place where you can go across the railroad tracks. You know, it actually has a place where it says, "Hey, you should walk across here." So,
yeah.
It'd be an interesting trip anyway to go over there. So, I've only been to the airport once and by the airport maybe 3 times. So, do you have, well, I'm going to ask you the questions that we have in the chat before I move on. April asks, and I think I've already got the answer to this, but you can validate this. Okay. Is there voodoo or Santeria done in that area?
I would say yes too. There's going to be all kinds of spiritual paths that go out there at different times because of the energy. You know, it's a perfect storm. You've got the water, you've got the quartz crystal sand, you've got the railroad track. So, you know, if you're into the crossroads, we interacted with the crossroads spirit for sure. So yeah, there are different people, and the Santeria and voodoo is not necessarily a bad thing, but these people were out there. I know they were killing people. They were sacrificing people. And they're probably people that were homeless or didn't, you know, that aren't going to. We've got a lot of missing people in Pensacola. And my belief is that about in the 70s when they were doing this, it was probably people that are missing now, because I do feel that there was some sacrificial stuff going on in that land, because we saw things and we heard things and chants and words that we should not hear. And it had nothing to do with voodoo, had nothing to do with Wiccan pagan, nothing like that. This was a whole different thing.
And what's funny is I'm going to be living off this highway.
Yeah,
okay.
Pretty much.
Well, it's 90. So yeah. He's like, no. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we don't see what we don't know. We need to know. As what, like I said, this is purely selfish on my part. I want to know what I'm walking into. And, you know, I grew up in Baltimore. There's not a lot of things that's going to scare me.
Yeah.
I wish
I could pull up the file just to go over how many homicides and murders and suicides. I'm looking.
You know what? We'll just save that for one day after we get moved there, and we'll just meet up for lunch.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
And then if we want to discuss it on air, then we'll discuss it on air.
Yeah.
So like I said, I'm making friends here. This is why I love doing this, is that I get to meet people and I get to learn about them before they learn about me. And then it's easy to have a conversation when I'm talking about you. Just is what it is. So we have another question in here, and Gary asks, he says, what is going on when an alarm clock sounds off and it's not plugged in?
So that reminds me of kind of like, they don't need electricity from the wall. Right. They are electricity. They're an energetic body, so they don't actually need that socket. You know, they do take energy from things, but they don't need it. So if someone is around you that's a spirit that's making that alarm clock go off and it's not plugged in, there's someone that's trying to get your attention. It does not feel to me like it's a bad thing. It feels like it has more to do with biological father connection. And it has nothing to do with waking you up, like, you know, because you need to wake up. It's about them trying to get your attention because there's something else that they need you to say or say to you. And it's really weird. Like, I'm in a 2-story house. I don't know if this guy Gary lives in a 2-story house, but there is something going on with the electrical or something, like where I feel like I don't smell wire smoke, but maybe he's doing some remodeling or something. And so there's this attention to detail about the house preparation or the repair, and to be really, really careful. And I almost want to say be careful with who you're dealing with. Like, if you were dealing with a shady contractor or something, but it's almost like it feels like his dad trying to get his attention, but it has more to do with the home and something to do about electrical. Okay.
Okay. And April asks, she says, have you ever dealt with harassing spirits?
Yes. Being a mom, and as we probably know, moms are mom bears. And so from the time my son was 2 years old, we had issues in this house that I lived in. I bought a haunted house. And so the spirits there were usually dead women that wanted me to help them with cases. At the time, I didn't know there were cases, but there were women that were missing that were trying to come to me and get my attention as a medium. And they started to bother my son. They started to harass my son. They started to shake his bed. They started to knock on walls. And when I would have visitors visit me, they started to flicker lights. They started to rattle the door. And it would be like all kind of crazy things. But yes, I was harassed more so by dead women than I have been by any other malevolent spirit. But when they started messing with my kid, I think they got my attention. And so boundaries happen at that point.
How did you set those boundaries?
So what I did, because I always felt like my mom empowered me in this ability, you know, it was never scary for me. I always understood that there was something that we were different. There was a way that we were different, but I didn't understand, like, you know, how to utilize the ability. I didn't know how to meditate. I didn't know how to protect myself, you know, because my mom wasn't really spiritual. She was her own thing. She's got more spiritual now, but, you know, she just had this ability, and, you know, it was just what it was. But so I kind of commanded my space. I went in there like crazy mama and was like, leave my son alone, da 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 da. And then I started to just pray and pray. And when they realized that I really wanted to help them, but I didn't understand how to help them, they said, okay, we have her attention now. We'll leave her son alone. They respected my boundaries. And so it was just pretty much, I had to go in there and command my space. And my son, I allowed him to do the same. I taught him how to pray, how to talk to them, how to tell them to go away. And we actually wrote a book called Sam and the Boogeyman, because we had an experience with my son with the boogeyman that really wasn't the boogeyman. I convinced him it was his guardian angel. And when I did that, it shifted how he saw these people, and they eventually went away.
That's a good way to flip the narrative.
Yes.
And change it from something scary to something positive, you know. And it's good when you can do that, because sometimes it's hard to do that with a child. And approximately what age was your son at that time?
The first spirit that my oldest son saw, he was 2 years old. We were in Morocco, and we were in a 5-story house, my husband's house. And we were on I think we're on the 4th level. And he was in the big living room area, and he pointed to the window, and he was walking toward the window, and there was a couch right there. And I was freaking out because I didn't see what he saw. And he said, monkey, kill me, monkey, kill me, monkey on my head, lion on my head. And I said, what are you talking? I mean, because those are the words that a 2-year-old uses. And so I then tapped into my intuition, because again, I was mama bear. And I asked my husband, I said, someone died in this house, and that's what he's seeing. He's seeing someone, he just doesn't understand. And he says, no, nobody died here. And that was the end of the conversation. And we eventually had to have someone come and also bless and pray and all this other stuff. And then later on, the family told me that when they built that house, because they just wanted me to not think about it, because they thought I would want to leave, and they thought I would want to take my son and leave. They did eventually tell me that when they built the house, that a guy got killed there. He was crushed. So what my son saw was that man communicating. What I saw all the times that I went there was a man telling me he died, and they never wanted to acknowledge it. And then we found out later on that one of his sisters got hit by a car right outside the house. Because I told him too, I said, there's a little girl that keeps talking to me when I'm here who, like, they didn't want to tell me. So they finally told me what really happened. And so that made me feel so much better, because I knew that I wasn't crazy in Morocco too.
Well, that's good. So what did their religion play a role in not wanting you to know?
Yes, because in Arabic culture, there's the jinn. The jinn is kind of like when we say spirits here. They believe that they believe that when you die, you're gone. That the spirits, the jinn, are kind of like when we call unfamiliar spirits here in the U.S. They believe that these unfamiliar spirits or jinn can be, they live their own life. They have the same thing that we have, but they can be good or bad. And so if you've seen that movie called Paranormal that's set in, I think it's set in Iran or someplace, I don't remember, but it talks about the jinn and Aisha Kandisha and all these different folklores that Arabic culture have. And it was more so that they didn't want to talk about it because they didn't want to invite that energy, which they didn't see this as a dead relative. They didn't see that as that dead man. They saw that as almost like this jinn, which could be like a demon. And
Right.
So, yeah. So as I was talking to them, they didn't want to even acknowledge it because they were like, no, that ain't his sister. That ain't that dead man. That's a demon. So when we finally realized what my son was seeing, it made me feel so much better because I've also helped them understand the spirit world a lot differently because of my interactions. I walked the streets in Morocco, pointed to a house and said, there's a person that, and told the whole story. And they told me it was true. So it's kind of opened their views on what the spirit world is, that we can come back and give us messages of love from afterlife.
Yeah, because I know, people see genies, which are female jinn, as friendly,
Yes.
as an I dream of.
Yes.
And then you've got jinn that they show on shows like Supernatural that are evil, sucking you dry, and all this other stuff. And then we have people like Santiago that comes back from another country, have experienced what they believe were jinn. Horrible experiences that they shared on that. But again, why is that so different there than here, where not every, we don't see every spirit as being horrible?
Well, I honestly think it has to do a lot with religion, and one of the biggest things that hinders most of us, and I know that it hindered me, is just the connotations of what you're taught about the spiritual world. Like, looking on television, you have the exorcist here. So if you're talking to a spirit, it's got to be a demon. It's got to be the little girl on television going to throw up and your head's going to turn around, you look at all these other movies that were based in like voodoo culture too, where, you were going to get possessed, be made a zombie, you're going to have stuff spit in your face, just all kind of things. So, coming out to just be psychic, what am I? Who's talking to me? What really is this? So I think in that culture, in different cultures, in Japan is a prime example. They're not really, they've gotten more into the spirit world now, but most times, a lot of people that I know that are Japanese, they're not trying to talk to ghosts and spirits. They're not with it. So I think culturally, everybody is just different. But I know in certain countries, like, in the Arab culture, it is automatically thought of as demonic. And because of that, I just think that mindset of it is that you will project that energy because you all already think that it's a demon. You don't ever think that it could be a relative, a loved one that's giving you something. And I don't know that individual, but just feels like there was a lot going on in the environment where he was. So I would look at like where he literally was, like physically, because I feel like there's death around him, that he was interacting with these different spirits coming in to his energy that were not just really just attacking him only. They were just like, it's almost like when you go to New Orleans post, the flood. He feels like he's either in a war zone or he's someplace where all these dead bodies are just coming at him at different times, and they're like, I feel like they're physically attacking him too. And he feels like his sanity is, at question at some point. And then I just feel like they release from him, and he's going to still have some problems with it because he's got a story to tell, and maybe the radio will help him tell the story. But he's also supposed to write it in book form. So, yeah.
And I think that he recently put out a book, didn't he, Carl?
Okay.
Santiago, 2.
Okay,
so,
good.
We have another question for you from Joshua Dixon.
Okay.
Another Floridian. He says, have you experienced mimicking of voices, either yourself or a team members or loved ones?
Mimicking, probably not, because I don't really think that it's the mimic of. I know that when we were in, what was that? In Bond Secure. And we were at a house, and the guy there kept saying my name. He said, "Where is Ericka? Where is Ericka? Where is she?" And they kept saying, "Ericka, Ericka, Ericka." And so, it was really interesting. We've had names, like we would say, okay, say Richard's name, or say Bob's name, or say somebody else's name. And all of a sudden you hear Bob, you hear Richard. So Reebok at the time was on my team, and Reebok is a hard name. We said, say Reebok. And all of a sudden, Reebok. What? What? So I don't really think that they're mimicking our names. I think that the spirits that we interact with are saying our names. But yes, I've heard my names. I've heard family members' names. I've heard all that,
Have they ever used that family members or other members' voice?
Yes. When I hear people, that's a good question. When I hear people, it's usually in the voice of the person that speaks to me. So that's kind of how I know if it's male or female, because I will hear, like, how we all think of Morgan Freeman's voice when we hear like a quote, or we read a quote on Facebook, and we read it in Morgan Freeman's voice in our head. And so it's like that for me too. Like if your female is talking to me, I hear like a female voice. If it's a male, sometimes I'll hear a male voice. Sometimes I won't be able to decipher what it is, but it is usually in the tone, the sound, as if it were that person talking to me.
So now when I tell you happy birthday in a message, now you're going to hear it in my voice.
I will.
So here is another question. This is from Gary. He goes, I know she's a medium, but does she have favorite equipment that she has used, like dowsing rods?
So I always tell people in investigations, simplicity is best. Your body is the best tool. But if you want to be more scientific, which I think that we as a team try to also be, more scientific, the tools that I like to use, I'm not a dowsing rod person, even though we do use those on investigations for tours. People love them because they can see, I can put their hands on a chair so it does not move, and they will see the rods move. And, I've had plumbers on our tour, from other countries, from Colorado, from California, from Texas. And they'll say, as soon as I pull out the dowsing rods, they'll say, yeah, we use this all the time to find water lines. So they're familiar with it, so we know it's legit. But if we wanted to ask what my favorite tool would be as a paranormal investigator, I would probably say like the K2 meters. I love those. And my favorite would be a periscope. I love the 360 periscope because I get a lot of good activity with that, especially with children. I've seen them light them up, spin them around for me, and just keep them going. And so those are my favorite, just regular K2 meter, you know, in a periscope.
What you just said child.
Yes.
And I have a question. This is, I ask this a lot when people bring up children. Why would a child not automatically cross over? I mean, they're innocent. Nothing, you know, there's nothing to hold them there. They should be going to the person that they love. Why would a child be haunting a location?
That's a great, great, great thing to ask. Okay, so I'm gonna say this in a different way. I have read women, you know, I've talked to women, and most mediums will say this too. And when we look at them, we sometimes will see what I call in utero deceased. In utero usually is a miscarry. It could be an abortion. It could be a stillbirth. It could be a lot of things. Okay. And a lot of times we will see those children as if they're babies and then they kind of grow, you know, because they don't stay babies. And so when I'm talking to someone, I'll say, okay, I can see a deceased child here, a deceased child. And then they'll either be very comforted because the abortion that they had when they were very young, they know that, hey, I'm not, they're not upset. It's like that baby has a soul and it's okay and it's here with me. So the same thing like at Seville, we have ghost children at Seville. And I'm often asked, why are these ghost children that were in a brothel, why are they still here? Why are they appearing to children as they walk down the alleyway at Seville from other different states? Why do they have this red ball that children will say, hey, mommy, there's a little kid there with a red ball. Can I go play? And mom will look at the kid like they're crazy because there ain't no kid there. They can't see it, but the kid can see it. And this has been told to staff members over and over and over again. And so what I've always said is that children, like when they're young now, they see things so differently. They're able to see spirits. And when they die, I believe that children do come back because I believe that some people just are put on this earth to do work here and there. And so what I think they do is they come back because they're messages of love. They're messages of the afterlife. And who do you trust but a child? You don't, a lot of times you don't trust an older spirit. You would trust a child. You would trust the innocence of a child. And so I think that they come back with these messages of love and hope, not to scare us. And then sometimes I think they appear to us like children. Even though we see them that way, they've evolved and they've grown up. And I've seen that with siblings, you know, like I did a party this weekend and there was, you know, a child there that appeared as a child, but I knew that this child was from a long, long time ago when they had lost a sibling. So that's just how they appear. They're not always children still.
One of the things that we've witnessed is a spirit that shows itself as a child so that you will accept it. And it's not a child at all. It's something much more horrible that,
yes.
You know, such as a succubus, incubus, you know, demon, wherever you want to go with that.
Yes.
Just as we've said many, many times, a spirit can show you what it needs you to see for you to accept it sometimes. So
yes.
I'm not very trusting. Let's go with that. I'm not very trusting until I have a reason to be on spirits.
Yes, I'm not also, and this is why I say that equipment is wonderful, but I just know that I always say there's an angelic entourage around me. That's like my thing, like angelic entourage. That's the vibe that I'm about. I'm all about that vibe. I'm not about low vibe. I'm not about low vibes. I'm not about low vibe people. I'm all about like seeing the beauty in you, helping you get to your destination and likewise. And so what I find is that what you will see or draw to you sometimes is about what you got going on. So if you're in a bad state too, and you're wanting to be psychic and you're doing drugs or you're depressed, it's not the time to do that because you're going to attract energies and entities and succubuses and demons and whatever we want to call them now.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to attract those people. And yes, they will mimic things and they can appear. But if you understand what right feels for you, what what your normal psychic temperature is, what I call it, your normal psychic temperature is, you will know when something is off. Like I knew when I'm standing someplace and I look there and I see this and I'm like, oh no. See, I'm not that girl in the horror movie that's like, oh, let's go inside and look. No, I'm like, I'm out. I'm totally out. I'm getting out of here.
I'm not the one in the mini skirt with no bra and high heels on running. That ain't me.
No, I'm the one that's like Jeepers Creepers. I'm like, I got the keys. I'm in the van, the bus. I'm getting out of here. Y'all can stay. But
I will say, I do love that commercial though, where it shows all these teenagers running from something and they end up in a shed full of chainsaws hanging there, and the guy's just sitting there going,
yeah.
I love that commercial.
Me too.
Because it's like every horror movie ever. You know,
yes.
What in the heck were you thinking?
Yes.
So we're back to the park. Gary's asking, is that area where the park is we were talking about, is that an area where slave ships might have unloaded there?
I don't think it actually was more slave ships. It was more Confederate soldiers and Union soldiers, and more of like that type of stuff where you have a lot of war history. I know that the chimney was burned down at some point, and different generals and whatnot had come through that area. So you're looking at more of the residual of Native American, the Native American thing. But yeah, and also that lady was Spanish. She wasn't Native American, but you do have a tribe. I don't recall the name of the tribe that was wiped out. You've got Native American, you've got the salt, you've got the crystal, the quartz, you've got the water, you've got planes that have crashed, you've got car accidents. I mean, I'm talking about in that stretch, I can recall probably 4 or 5 bodies that have just floated up in water that were in car accidents. A guy that stabbed his mom in the eye, in proximity. I mean, when I tell you the proximity of that area with death, homicide, suicide, crazy happenings is unbelievable.
Isn't this area, I seem to recall eating at a Wendy's there when I took my daughter to the airport a few years ago. It didn't seem like the safest neighborhood to be getting out of my car and going in and eating in a restaurant.
Well, that's actually a little further away from this.
This is just right near the air. I mean, this was probably one exit from the airport.
So what you're going to remember about this place is when you go down Scenic Highway, you're going to see the millionaires. This is a place where millionaires have houses. I'm talking about big time houses. Yeah. And you're going to see cliffs. You're going to see waterfront property. And as you travel down that road, I mean, there's been a lot of crazy things that have happened. But when you start to get to Langley and the Bluffs and airport area, in this area is where you get the woods and the water, and they've built this walkway. But in those woods and in the train track area between the chimney and the Bluffs, there have been, I cannot tell you how many deaths, reported suicides. It is a treasure trove of energy, and you will feel it in the daytime. But in the nighttime, there's a whole ominous vibe. There was one guy that was actually murdered there. He was beat up, he was bludgeoned and killed on the train tracks. I'm telling you, there is just so much death. There was a girl in the 70s who shot her boyfriend in the car at the not even at the parking lot, because it was different then. On the side of the road, she shot her boyfriend. There was a guy who took a girl out there to assault her. I mean, there's assaults. There is so much stuff that has happened there that it is, as an empath, it would be so hard not to feel that residual energy.
Well, like I said, I'm going to have to go out there. It sounds a lot like Jefferson City, Missouri, high on the bluffs, on the river, railroad tracks right there. Missouri State Pen is right on where the railroad tracks are and where the river is. And there's beautiful houses all around there. Too bad, built by inmates, but it is what it is, So I'll have to really check that out. Susan asks, do you do readings online?
I do. So the only thing I do, I used to have a store, and I haven't had a store now for about 4 years. Sal at Live and Let Live has a store in Pensacola. It's a really fabulous store. It's got tons of stuff in it. And so when I need something, if I don't get it online, I go to Sal's store because I no longer have my store. And I don't read in person unless I'm booked for a party. And I primarily only do phone appointments. And I'm on Lex and Terry once a month. And so that usually keeps me swamped with appointments, just being on that show just once a month. But yeah, I do phone appointments, and I do ask people to record their session. I allow that because I want to be accountable to the things I say. And I always tell people, if you get a reading from someone, if they won't let you record it, then you might not want to get a reading from them, because you need to remember what you hear, and they need to be accountable for what they say to you.
Very nice. And what show did you say that is that you're on once a month?
So I'm on Lex and Terry. It's a radio show, and people just call in, and I do readings, and I'm a remote viewer too, which is kind of funny because people will call in and they'll say, well, I need to know about, this. And I'll say something. Well, first of all, let's talk about your house. And I'll be walking around in their house telling them things, and they'll be like, what? How do you, like, I don't know how I know this, but it just happens. But yeah, I really enjoy them. They're really crazy, crazy guys. And they're all a great, great, great show in the morning.
Is it a local radio show there in Pensacola?
No, they're based out of Texas. They're kind of it's not Ryan Seacrest yet, but it is a nationally syndicated show, and they broadcast in a lot of different states, and it's a morning show, and they're crazy, crazy guys.
Okay, wait a second. Somebody said something to me this morning about a morning show. Let's see what he said it was, because one of the shows that he likes just got picked up by iHeart. And let me see if I can find it, because it's right here somewhere. Because I do a question of the day at work. Like a team builder.
Okay.
And I do it intentionally because, I'm in Kansas. Everybody else is in Minnesota. Or not Minnesota. Well, one's in Minnesota and the rest are in Denver. Well, how can you get to know each other when you're not, hanging out together or working closely? So it's one of the ways that I give back and really annoy people. So and it's great. You always want to annoy people so that they laugh. So now I can't find it, but it had 2 names to it. So who knows? But he says it's some morning show that's funny and he loves it and he listens to it every day. So
okay, awesome.
So Brooke and Jeffrey, that's what it is. Brooke and Jeffrey in the morning.
Okay.
I've never heard of it, but it's you can only guess. And because another friend of mine, she does a morning show in Omaha every once a month, and she gets a ton of business from it as well. And of course, we have another guy that's famous that does them out of Omaha as well. So I forgot his name, but how famous is he if I can't remember his name, right?
Omaha, I think about a Counting Crows song that I like. Yeah.
Well, it's just 4 hours from here. So let's see. We have a comment, and maybe you can answer this question. Amanda Jane Norton, she's in the UK. She asked this question a week ago, and I had on a Bigfoot hunter, and I didn't get back to her, and I'm so sorry that I didn't. She says, hi, guys. I lost my dad 2 weeks ago. 2 days before he passed, my daughter told him she was having a boy. And the third scan picture, my dad is there as clear. So in the sonogram picture, her dad showed up. She goes, but he was still alive and well. When I hear that, it makes me go back to something that you said about Susan and about when people die. Not specifically about Susan, but that sometimes people go, they're more out of it than with it when they're getting ready to die. That maybe spiritually he was traveling at that time to see everybody before he left.
Yes.
Is that how you see it?
I do. And I know that this is true because when people talk with people like us, it is often that we do go out of body or we remotely see something. And so what I believe is that when a person is in the hospital, medicated or not, there is this intent, this strong intent to visit our loved ones, to check on them. So they separate. They separate out of body. They go into the dream state a lot of times with loved ones. Sometimes they will give someone, like you can be at work and you just feel this feeling. It's like this feeling something's not right. I need to call and check on said person. And then when you do, you come to find out, hey, come to the hospital now. And so it's almost like they come visit and they give us this intuition, this telepathy to warn us or to tell us or to say goodbye. And even sometimes after they die, they come into the dream state and they show up. And then you call maybe the next day and you find out the person has already passed. So they do definitely visit. And I'm curious to know too, because before I didn't know if I saw it on your bed though. Like I started to look at the side of that white comforter or whatever that is over there. And I could see this dog pop up like an invisible ghost dog. And that dog was, I kind of drew it. So I like to draw what I see, but it was kind of weird like that, but it was more than one color. It wasn't brown, it was white and it had black on it. So, but I think that has more to do with maybe her too, because that man, her dad, has a dog, but he looks different. It could be one color, black or something, like a lab with the short, smooth hair. And that dog is with him. So if that lady has in the UK has a dad that also had a dog, or she just lost a dog, maybe that's his way of saying, hey, I'm okay, but I have this big dog with me too. That's a darker color. Okay.
Let's see. Sometimes these comments come so fast. It's just so hard. When my dad died, I heard my dad say, call your mother. My dad had just passed.
Yes.
This is from Barbara. That's what Barbara said. She'd heard that when her dad died. She had told me that story in the past. And again, it goes back to what we've just were talking about. One of the things that April said is probably a very interesting concept. Time travel. Is it possible that we can see them, that they can go back in the past and we could have seen them again at a different time of their life when we were younger? You know, like my dad died when I was young, and is it possible that I saw my older dad when I was 5 instead of the dad that I saw when I was 10?
Yes. So, I have this belief about time, and time is man-made. We're looking at a clock, we're looking at our cell phone, we're counting down the seconds and minutes. And when we look, like when I go places or when I see things as you do, it's like this, it's so quick. And I do feel that our loved ones, because I have had visions of, I can't say their past lives, but I've had visions of variety of different people that are in my bloodline that look all different, that have visited me at different times in my life. And one lady, I just saw her 2 days ago. She looked like a flapper, and like I just feel very connected to her. She's actually Caucasian as well. And so that's in my bloodline also. And I know that she was a singer, and I talked about her today to one of my friends, and I know she's a flapper. But yeah, so I do believe that our loved ones do come back. I do believe our ancestry reach out from, heaven, and they come and talk to the grandchild that they've never seen, and they appear like how they need to appear. And you see this a lot when you have children going through photo albums, and they will say, I saw that man, and it might be their great grandfather that they've never met. I dreamed about him. I've had lots of parents and different people contact me about their children seeing a spirit in a room, and then they show them photos and they can pick out the spirit, and it's the great grandma, the grandma, or the aunt that they never knew.
So back at Thanksgiving, we took all of all of our grandchildren met up in St. Louis with their parents, and they got to see their great grandma. And our oldest grandson stayed with us, because of bed situations. And so he stayed with us, and he was getting a little cranky. And so I decided to play I Spy. Grandma had a little wooden ghost, and he knows what they are because I make him ghost toast all the time.
Okay.
I'll have to explain ghost toast, but
Okay.
I make him, food all the time, and and it's always picturesque. And so I ask him, I go, I spy with my little eye a ghost, and he points not at the ghost in the cabinet. He points at the chair across the room.
Yes.
And it's like, okay. And, I didn't get up. None of us jumped or anything. And I was, I picked up this thing, and he points at it, and I wasn't showing it to him as a picture,
Yes.
There's a picture on it. I was just holding it. And I said, do you see anything that looks like the ghost in the chair? And he pointed to Ron's dad.
Wow.
Who had died back in 2019. And I mean, it made Ron's mom feel so great to know that he was there, seeing his great grandchildren, but how, sometimes you want to explain this to people, explain it away, but you can't. I mean, this is one of those times where you can't say that I led him on. I didn't.
Yes.
Because I was just being grandma. Let's distract the kid till he goes to bed. But it started up a whole other conversation. And the next day, of course, that's all anybody could talk about was that Ruby saw grandpa, and it's an amazing story. And we have about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
So I'm going to make sure there's no more questions in the chat. If there is, and we don't get to them, I will send them to Ericka, and she can answer those in her own spare time there. If she wants to. If she doesn't, oh well. Nothing I can do. But you know what? I do want to go back to time travel real quick. Do you believe that with the time travel that we can affect our future by being able to go back at a time to heal ourselves, so that we have a bad breakup, we kind of heal ourselves from that, and going forward after that we don't feel it anymore? It's like we healed our past.
Yes. So what I teach people, and what I've been telling my friends recently that I've been doing is, and this might sound a little graphic, but I ask to go back to the time that I came out of my mom's vagina when I'm born. And I literally did this 2 nights ago, and I could see another person. And I said to myself, is that a twin? Is it the reason why that I've always had an extra person around me? Was it because I had a twin? And then the spirit there said, no, I'm not your twin. And they started talking about guidance and ancestry in this. And so then I understood that. But what I do feel is that, I challenge people, go back to that space and then think about different points in your life and ask that question. It's kind of like healing the inner child. What lessons did I need to learn here? What trauma? Go back to the trauma and see what lessons, and ask to heal the trauma. Because sometimes people play a role in that trauma. Sometimes those people are dead, so they're doing things to help you now that you don't even know they're doing to help you heal the trauma. And so when you go back and you forgive yourself, and you sometimes might have to forgive the circumstance, or, whatever the players that played in that trauma or that circumstance. And then you kind of walk up until now, and then you just ask, really, literally, it's through a prayer or meditation. You just ask to guide you. I always like to use the highest good. Guide me into my highest good, and give me the breadcrumbs so that I can live my best life, and put people in my path that are to help me heal. And healing also is action. So you can't just sit in your bed and wallow. You've got to get up and take some initiative. But yes, I do recommend people go back in time in your head, because you're really going back time and energy anyway. Time travel is energy. You know, it's just like how we remote view and we go places. You can travel back in time, you can go forward. The thing with going forward though, and I've done this going forward, don't think that it's concrete, because you change, your destiny and your life changes every day. So even if you go forward, I remember, and I tell this story, I remember one time when I was sick, I've had a kidney transplant. And I said, when will I die? And they said, when my son was 15 years old. My son is now in his 20s. And I said, I don't want to die then. I don't want to die then. So what do I need to do? And they told me, you need to lose weight. You need to do this. And I did everything they said I needed to do. And that's why I'm still here. And that's why I got a kidney 2 days before my birthday. So yes, you can go in front and they can tell you stuff, but you can also change that trajectory.
I've told people that a lot. So I'd like to thank you so much for coming on. I hope you will consider doing this again. Yes. I hope that you had a great time. And yes, please tell everybody where they can find you one more time, so that they can find you and get those readings or find out about your events.
So what we're really pushing right now is the website. We've got a lot of, I call them B films, because, you know, we didn't know what we were doing, but they're really good. We've got some, I'm going to say the Myrtles location was really good. So check out our films. You can watch them on different streaming platforms. They're on our website as well. You don't have to pay for them. We have them on Vimeo, but you can also buy them on or watch them on Amazon and Tubi and all in different places. Our team is secondsightparanormal.com. My website is coldcasepsychic.com. And we will have a lot of downloads for those that are wanting to learn how to use your psychic intuition. My empowermentschoolhouse.com website has classes. I'm about to start a live on Thursdays where it's called Psychic Vibe Check. And so you'll just join the live and we'll chat for about 15 minutes. But yeah, so I just empower people to use your intuition. I don't think that I'm special because I'm a medium. I think we're all special because we're intuitive, and learn how to use that ability to co-create your life.
Well, thank you so much for being on. Join us next week when my guests are Caleb Bartell and Frank Bennett. It's going to be an interesting 2-part show with 2 different guests. I think you guys will enjoy it. And join us tomorrow night at 5 p.m. when our guest is Bigfoot hunter Carl Bouchard. So 5 p.m. Central tomorrow with the Paranormal Nation Radio, Not So Normal. And join us here every Monday night at 7 p.m. Central for the Paranormal Pride. And have a great week, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
The views expressed here are solely the opinions of the hosts and the guests, and not necessarily those of the network, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, etc. If you have an issue with the content of the show, please contact the show host. Thank you.